Hey everyone, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are talking about the new COVID-19 vaccine. Obviously, there are several of them in development right now, and hopefully we're going to have one soon, but the Russians appear to be hacking in and stealing them, and so the question is, why would they be doing this? And this is what's going on, and I thought this was absolutely fascinating. It's come to light in the last 48 hours or so, and there are various sources on this, but I'm cribbing mostly my notes from Tech Radar, who I thought had a really good article on this of all the ones that I read in my research. Now, by virtue of that, let's dive in. So, security services in the United Kingdom, the United States, and Canada have warned that Russian hackers, or rather state-sponsored Russian hackers, have begun to target organizations working on developing a vaccine for the coronavirus, or COVID-19. Now, in a new advisory, the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre, or NCSC, said that these hackers almost certainly, quote-unquote, were, and I quote, part of Russian intelligence services, though it did not specify whether any information regarding potential vaccine had been stolen or which organizations working on things like this were targeted. In addition to the UK's NCSC, the Canadian Communication Security Establishment, or CSE, the US Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, and the NSA also issued warnings about recent hacking attempts targeting vaccine research for the coronavirus. Now, the latest accusations are actually different because they are now directly naming Russian hackers as opposed to just staying nation state. When this first came to light, and we were seeing this in the past, basically it was being tracked, it was being researched, it was being analyzed. Now, in the last 48 hours, they are coming out and pointing the finger at Russia. Now, other organizations and researchers as well are pointing the finger, as well as these intelligence agencies now, at APT-29, or Advanced Persistent Threat 29, which has also historically been known as Cozy Bear, although it has a more recent moniker now, and they are known as the Dukes. So Cozy Bear or the Dukes, whatever you want to call them, they are considered APT-29. Eventually, the UK's NCSC started saying this, and then the others followed suit. Now, according to the UK, the US, and Canadian agencies, these hackers were exploiting software flaws to gain access to computer systems using two types of malware, one called Well-Mess and the other called Well-Mail, and they were using these to retrieve files from the infected machines. The state-sponsored hackers also reportedly used spear phishing attacks to trick users into providing their login credentials, which is a very standard tactic that we see worldwide from state-sponsored actors or not. In a statement, though, to Russia's news agency TASS, or TASS, T-A-S-S, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov denied all responsibility for the recent hack, saying, and I quote, "We don't know who tried to carry out the hacking attacks in the United Kingdom, but Russia certainly has nothing to do with it. We continuously confront attempted cyber attacks against our computer databases and those of our departments. Our agencies regularly repel such attacks since it is a common problem. We strongly reject these groundless accusations against us." But here's the thing. Intelligence agencies have actively been tracking APT-29 for much of the last decade. If you recall, the Dutch intelligence agency AIVD started actually tracking them and discovering them in 2014, and then alerted their US allies when Cozy Bear hit the DNC and the DCCC in the 2016 election cycle. So obviously that was a huge problem because they stole information like John Podesta's emails and some other stuff, and then started putting that out strategically on WikiLeaks. This was tracked by multiple intelligence agencies around the globe, thanks to the Dutch AIVD. So, by virtue of that, it would stand to reason that with multiple intelligence agencies and cybersecurity researchers all pointing the finger at APT-29, there is a rather high degree of confidence that this is legitimately Cozy Bear or the Dukes, and not anyone spoofing them, because that is a very, and I could go into that for quite some time, but that actually becomes a very interesting thing that you're able to discern as you go through research. And so, by virtue of that, knowing that it's the Russian state-sponsored actors of APT-29 with a high degree of certainty, the question is, what is in this for Russia overall, especially now that they've been caught? And so, let's go through this, because reports indicate that there are at least 6 different potential vaccines being developed in Russia as of a few months ago. However, their infrastructure for this kind of research tends to lag behind much of Western Europe, the United States, Canada, Australia, Japan, and others. So stealing developmental research in this vein could actually further the efforts of these Russian companies or organizations in their race to find their own vaccine and then obviously sell it to the world. Now, that leads me to the second point, which is money. Many vaccine makers worldwide, through the pandemic here, have now declared that if they develop a viable vaccine, they are not going to take any profit from it, meaning the whole world needs to have this, and so we're going to cover our costs, but the rest of it is basically going to be distributed to the world. Now, not taking profit is somewhat debatable. So, for example, here in the United States government, as in other governments, the government is looking at subsidizing the R&D effort, which could potentially essentially net the vaccine maker millions or more. So they would be profitable, even if, let's say, they're selling it at cost due to production. So it's a noble statement and commendable as well, because I think, quite frankly, the whole world is in this one together. But there is no Russian vaccine maker, and I was Googling and trying to find out any of these that would list a statement that has actually joined this pledge for no profitability. If they end up trialing and succeeding, that would basically be a serious cash cow for Russia itself, who has very deep ties into its organizations, because the Russian economy right now is primarily on petrol dollars, and that is run by the state, which means if they were actually able to get, let's say, a state-sponsored organization to have the vaccine, that would be a massive, massive boost in cash for Russia as well. There's also the question of Russia's legitimacy on the world stage as well, which I think a lot of people aren't taking into account. So by showing this level of innovation, basically developing, let's say, a vaccine on their own, Russia's standing as a major power could potentially increase. Much of the world at the moment has an unfavorable opinion of Russia, whether it's due to, let's say, remnants of the Cold War, or its rise in organized crime that has spread throughout the globe and is one of the major centers for hacking for hire and malware development in the dark web, or its machinations against former Soviet states that used to be under its control, like Ukraine and Chechnya. I mean, it's very difficult for Russia to be seen as an equal on the world player to some of the other major nations around. And so Russia supplying the world with a vaccine could go a long way to bolstering its claims of being a superpower once again, when right now, from what I understand, the state of Texas here in the United States actually has a larger economy than the entire nation of Russia, which has the most landmass on the planet. So that, I think, is a lot of motivation for Russia basically to get their state-sponsored hackers and their cutouts to start looking for this kind of stuff, because if they can develop it first, it's cash, it's prestige, it's everything that I think Russia needs to continue to try to expand its influence worldwide, and not just through subterfuge, but on the surface into the general public as well. And so I think it's a very important thing that we need to watch, because as we have many nation states that are always breaking into one or the other, when we are in the middle of a pandemic and everybody is racing for a vaccine, I think it's important to make sure that that vaccine is available to the 7 billion of us, or however many there are on the planet, so that we are inoculating against this and hopefully making the world a little bit of a safer and healthier place to live. And so by virtue of that, that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, everyone.